welcome to the Critical Summon Club. I'm Sean,
I'm Colm.
and we're here today to talk about Dune 2. We've not
Yes.
done a live in a little while. We thought we'd take a little break and work on some other bits and pieces for the channel. But I can speak for myself. I'm sure I can speak for you too, Colin. We both saw Dune 2 separately, and we both said we've got to talk about this film because
Yeah.
it definitely left an impact on me. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes it seems to be rarer and rarer these days, but you come out and you think, I've got to talk about it. And not everyone's got a YouTube channel to talk about these things, but we do.
Well, yeah.
So we've not spoke. We've just had a quick text between us, haven't we, to say we both really enjoyed it. But this is the first actual discussion we've had on it, and
Yeah.
we thought we'd share it with the dozens and dozens of people who are going to join us for this. So, what were your thoughts on it, Colin, when you watched it? I
I
think
really
you
enjoyed
obviously
it.
You watched the first one and enjoyed that too, I imagine.
Yeah, so
It'd be a bit
we
of a waste
watched.
of time going to watch the second one.
I
without
know.
watching the
I'll be
first.
like, what's going on? We watched the first one again on Friday night just to kind of refresh ourselves, and then we went to see it on Sunday. And I have to say, I thought it was spectacular. Just the visuals, the storytelling of it. I mean, I haven't read the book. Went to see a couple of friends on Wednesday night, and we were talking about. And one of the guys has read the book, and he's seen it from a different perspective, and he's comparing this to that and the other. And he was saying how much he enjoyed the new films compared to, say, the David Lynch version, which I found was a bit difficult to get through and just really couldn't get my head around that version of it.
But, yeah, I've not watched that because maybe I will after all three films. I assume there's going to be a third one. After all three films are done, I might watch it, but I don't want to taint my view.
No.
I've got no other. I don't know if you're. It sounds like you're the same as me, and there'll be people watching this can't believe it. I almost know nothing about Dune apart from what I've seen on these two films, and I think probably for the best for most.
I agree. Yeah. So my big thing with watching this film was just how in Hollywood recently there hasn't been much coming out which I've gone to the cinema and come out and thought, God, that was amazing. I've either not bothered going to the cinema and just waited for it to come out on streaming and just really not enjoyed films as much as, say, we would have done when pre Avengers Endgame, really. But just the fact that Denis Villeneuve has been able to go in there and make the film that he wanted to make. I was reading that he felt that this was his kind of magnum opus, where this is a film that he really wanted to do, he wanted to adapt the book from. And this was his dream, to be able to bring all of this to the screen. And the fact that they're splitting it into multiple films. I know that there's talk of the third one carrying on, but you could leave it where it is, really, and it would. I still felt that it was a really good ending to it. But when I came out of that, I just thought, how refreshing is it to see a film like that by a visionary director and a great crew, the cinematography, the special effects, the sound, the score by Hans Zimmer. Just fantastic. Honestly, it was a breath of fresh air.
Well, in response to that, up until you said his name was Denis, I thought his name was Dennis. So
Denis Villeneuve.
I thought his name was Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve, yeah.
No, I completely agree with everything you've said. And Hans Zimmer, every time he scores a film, it's fantastic. I think what swayed me that like we've talked about previously on the channel, actually picking a film to go and watch, you've got to make sure you pick a good one, haven't you now? But definitely, I saw a comment online that said this is a film that you have to see at the cinema, and I thought, well, okay, that swayed me, and I completely agree with that sentiment actually. So that the visuals and the noise and the sounds I thought I was really glad, and I don't get that very often now, but I thought I'm really glad I've come out and spent my money and sat and watched it. There was only about 10 people in the screen as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we ended up sitting next to people, didn't we?
Oh, the same thing happened to us. There's not that many people in there, and you're sitting next to people. I think when it started, people started to spread out a bit, which was quite good. But I think the one thing that really summed it up for me was my wife, Kerry, isn't the biggest film buff, and she can get a bit bored quite easily with films. And she said at the end of that, it was one of those ones that had it been made by somebody else, she would have been bored a long time ago. But just the fact that the visuals and the pacing, the editing, and everything else I mentioned was good enough keep her captivated in what was going on, and she found it easy to follow and stuff. I think that speaks volumes, as it's a film that can kind of open up to different kinds of audiences, and
Definitely,
different people can view it in their own way, and the subjectiveness of it is brilliant.
Well, I think that just proves Dennis did a really good job, because...
Well done, Dennis.
Well done, Dennis.
Dirty Den.
Dennis the Menace. Because I think there were some key characters from the books who had scenes filmed, and I think there was a lot cut to keep it tight. And I think that just proves, probably ultimately, was the correct decision. Must be very difficult to cut good stuff, because I think I read a couple of bits by him. Was gutted to have lost some of these scenes, but at the end of the day, it's what you got to do, isn't it, to keep it? Otherwise, you do overinflate it, don't you? And people do get bored.
Yeah, and I think the cast that was in there, with one exception, which I'll come to in a minute, it was a very strong cast. And I think if you introduce too many more characters, for me, it's a little like in Game of Thrones, for instance, which I'm watching at the moment. I find there's too many characters, too many names to remember, and it's a little bit distracting. And I think if you introduce too many characters to the narrative, it can be a little bit jarring. Like, I don't know what's going on with this person, and you lose that person for a while, and you come back to them later, and you kind of forget. And this was the big thing with Austin Butler's character. And I know that I can't remember the name of the character now, but it was Sting played the same character in the David Lynch version, and they're very different. They're portrayed very differently for a start, but Austin Butler was so menacing, and but there was no humor to the menace. Do you know, like when you get Heath Ledger's Joker, there's a humor to the kind of menace, Dennis's menace, if you will.
Yes.
But Austin Butler's character was just outright menacing, and we've discussed this on a previous discussion video a while back about how excited we were to see Dave Bautista in this, and
he was a complete bitch in this film. To be fair,
but you didn't expect. I thought it was underutilized in the first one, but they were going to bring him into the narrative more in the second one, which they did. But how good was he in the film, though? It was just great to see him as a bit of a bitch.
It was good, because it was played completely against type, because you don't often see Batista thrown around and basically be slapped about and be the joke, because it was just a complete failure. His character, really, wasn't he?
He was, really. And I was expecting this massive, big, fight between Drax and I'm going to say Cable, but I'll have to go. I'll have to go with Thanos for the obvious reason. But there's going to be this big epic fight between them, and it's got spoilers. If anyone hasn't seen this yet, spoilers.
It all kicks off.
It all kicks off. There's a few stabbings, but that whole fight lasted what, 30 seconds?
But I suppose, when you see fights in films and they go on for age, it's not realistic at all. I think most fights would only last 30 seconds.
And it was a satisfying 30 seconds between the two.
That's what she said.
Yay! First inappropriate joke about 8 minutes in. Well done, John.
But I just want to pick up on a point you made, which you were talking about Game of Thrones and
Games of Thrones.
Games of Throne, and now the plot can get convoluted quite quickly. What I liked about the plot line was there's enough characters and it's complex enough that it's a good story, but actually it's quite simple, really, isn't it? There's not loads of political maneuverings going on, where sometimes in a lot of TV shows and films you get a bit lost with who's doing what. But it was but I imagine I've just started with the book. I'll see how I go with it, but I imagine there are a lot of other houses and a lot of other characters and a lot going on. But really, you only see two houses, don't you, in this film? And they don't like them, and they want them gone. And there's an emperor, and it's quite a simple enough, straightforward story but also engaging at the same time without being overbearing and confusing. So I enjoyed that about that.
I think you just mentioned there was it was the one character I actually thought was quite jarring to me, and that was Christopher Walken as the Emperor, because he was just Christopher Walken. It's like, I am the Emperor.
Yeah, he had the same accent as always.
Yeah, it's just like, I had this hunk of junk up my ass for 2 years.
I mean, I don't know why you could. I would have got some like Patrick Stewart or something. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody
someone
was
a bit more gravitas.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Christopher Walken's a bad actor, but he just didn't seem right for that kind of role. I couldn't take him seriously. I thought it was Matt Streck from Batman Returns.
I don't think I've ever seen him in a role like that ever. It was just I mean, because this was quite rare for me because I went into that film. I didn't know a great deal about what's going to happen. I didn't even know who was going to be in it. So when Anna Taylor-Joy turned up for like 10 seconds, I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
decent, is she?"
She's in everything at the moment as well, and she's got that Furiosa film coming out later this year. But her and Austin Butler are two actors who are that popular that they're enough to start to draw people's attention, which I feel like those kind of actors are a little bit too far in between at the moment, and that's a good thing, really. But and I was really looking forward to seeing Josh Brolin's character come back into it. I forget.
Yeah, I didn't know he was going to be there.
No, I thought he got killed off in the last film, but how wrong I was.
Yeah, what was his name?
Guinea.
I was going to call him Galen, but that was Picard's character in
Galen.
Galen.
Yeah, that's also the name of the character in the black expansive place with the eyes and the mouth. Galen.
Oh, is it? Is that where he gets the name from then?
Yeah, I must do. We cannot go a single week without talking about Star Trek, can we?
We can't. But I'm going to get that character's name because it's right on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
But also nowhere near. So
I've Guinea or Gunny or something like that seems to stick in my mind.
Guinea. Gurney.
Gurney, there you go, not far off. So far.
Galen.
But I quite liked Jason Momoa. Now I have to say this: Kerry kept calling him Jason Mimosa when we were watching it the other day. So
he's not
that's
in
a cocktail. No, because he was killed off at the end of the first one, and as I was watching it, I was just thinking, how strange is it that you remember these characters in the previous one that are just not even here in the second one, and they don't really feel missed, but they were good in the previous film.
I mean, I don't know how much I should say really, because I have some awareness of things from the books, but without having read them yet. So I won't say them because you might not know. But there's certain bits and pieces I've heard from the books which I've not yet read myself that I've sort of half expecting to come up in the film and they didn't. And it's because I'm not with it yet when it comes to what should be happening. So I would like to try and finish the trilogy before the next film comes out.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of perspective, doesn't it?
I did that with Lord of the Rings, you know.
I did as well.
I watched because I hadn't read it when the films came out, and I remember watching I always want to call it the Twin Towers. That would be really bad, wouldn't it? But the two towers at the cinema. And I thought I've got to read all three books before the third one, and I managed to do it. So I'm going to try and do it again. Yeah.
I read the first book before I saw the film, but I didn't read Two Towers or Return of the King before I saw those films. But I ended up finishing those books eventually. I have to admit they're not the easiest of reads, especially the first book with all the Tom Bombadil.
And they're so big. I mean, looking this great big book around.
Yeah.
But now it's no excuse now, is there, with Kindle and things?
You can actually get Andy Serkis to read it to you on Audible. I don't know if he's going to do his Gollum impression, but
he ought to, yeah. But it's you had to, didn't you? I just knew you had to.
Help myself.
But I remember audiobooks are all right. I listened to The Stand on audiobook.
Yeah.
And that must have taken me over a month. That is such a big book. But I feel like I haven't read it. There's a big argument online about whether you can say you've read a book if you listen to it. What do you think? I don't think you can. What do you say?
I would say that you don't get the same perspective of a book when you're listening to it, because you can read it in a different way to how it's been narrated. So you pick up the kind of the grammar and the mannerism of the speech, if you will, in your own mind, and you can start to visualize that in your own way. And when someone's reading it to you, you kind of set to their narrative. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I like reading books where I've seen the film. It's a bit like this. You know, if you started reading, they describe things. If I had not seen the film, I wouldn't have a clue what they were trying to describe.
And you're visualizing it as if you're reading the say Jaws, for instance. Jaws' book is quite different to the film. But when you're reading the book after seeing the film, you're imagining the characters as they are in the film. You're imagining how they look in the film, and you're imagining that setting in the film to what you're reading, even though there's a slight difference in the narrative. And I guess you'll get the same with the Dune books. But I mean, I've never got around to reading any of them. Maybe I will do after seeing these films. But
there's some key changes.
Yeah, and I think when you adapt a book like Dune, when there's such a heavy kind of plot to it, which you can't include everything. It's nigh on impossible to include everything. A good thing that can come out of it, it can inspire people to go and read the book. So I feel that people don't read as much these days.
I know I don't. I'd like to.
I don't.
But I think just life is just so much more packed now.
Of course it is.
TV and film, obviously, we talk about it all the time. By the time, I don't know about you, by the time it gets to like 10 o'clock, I'm struggling. I'm really trying to push myself to read, and it doesn't always happen. No,
and I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. But just to go back to the film itself and the impact I think this film is going to have is obviously last year in 2023 was a bad year for Hollywood. There was a lot of flops for different reasons. There was the Actors Guild strike. There was there was massive strikes. I don't know the ins and outs of it, if I'm being honest. That might be me just being a bit ignorant. If I am, apologies to everybody out there. The other one was the fact that films that were being made were just very much devoid of any creativity, and there was just the marketing as well. Yeah, it was. I mean, Marvel's. I felt. I don't know what your thoughts were on those kind of films. We've mentioned these films before, but the comic book films as such, like the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp in Phantom Menace Mania, or whatever it's called. They're just not, for me, they're just films that are just put together and throw out there because they're just flashy visuals and
it fit the formula.
Yeah, it's paint by numbers, really, isn't it? But with Dune, it didn't feel like that whatsoever. It felt like that there was
it was fresh, weren't it?
Yeah, there was a methodical process to the filmmaking, and everybody involved in that. You can't just say the director is the only person in that whole collection of people that brought that film to life. You've got to look at that one film with all those people at different levels working on it. It bodes well that visionary directors like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan is another one. When they've got a film coming up, I'm intrigued. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm intrigued when I know that they've got a project
definitely
coming up.
Definitely. I mean, we've talked about Dennis a few times now, haven't we? And whatever he does next, I'm sure Batista will be in it with him.
Yeah, I hope so.
But it was really refreshing to watch or look forward to, and then finally watch a film where I didn't know what was going to happen. It is I suppose you could call it a franchise because it's been made before, but it's not like Terminator 9.
No,
or another superhero. It was a film I didn't know what was going to happen, didn't know who was going to be in it. I was just looking forward to just a feast for the eyes and the ears, and that's what it was. And I just felt like, oh wow, it brought me some hope that there'll be some more good films to come in the future. People might take a chance on some of these other IPs if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because I'm thinking more of from a filmmaker's perspective, such as you like I mentioned Christopher Nolan as well, and there's other filmmakers out there like Paul Thomas Anderson, these renowned David Fincher as well. These are people that are, when they're allowed to kind of make the films they want to make, they knock the ball out of the park every time.
Definitely, yeah. And
especially with like Disney and Marvel and all that, they're not hiring directors to do a job; they're casting directors. So the executives are saying that this is the film you have to make. These are the shots you have to put together, and this is how the film's going to be, and that you can't change it. If you do, we're going to fire you off, and that's happened so many times.
It's very controlled, aren't they? Yeah, it
is very controlled, and I think you've made a good point there about the IP. Taking a chance on an IP that might not be. I mean, who would have thought that Dune, especially with the David Lynch film, and the miniseries. I don't know if you're aware of the Dune miniseries.
I'm aware of it. I haven't watched it.
I've not watched it either. But you put that together, and you would have thought, wow, this IP in the right hands, someone like Denis Villeneuve is going to do it justice. So,
because you think with that Blade Runner 2, what am I saying?
2049.
Yeah, I mean that must have given him a lot of stock to
Yes.
make a film like this? Because without that film, does he get to make Dune and make it like he wants to? And who knows? But I don't know. You get Dune without Blade Runner. So,
I agree. But you don't get Blade Runner without Arrival.
Yeah, which we watched again. I showed it to my daughter Molly
did
a couple
you?
of weeks ago. She thought it was great. Yeah, she
It is
really
a very
enjoyed
good
it.
film. It's a really
I didn't know if
good
she was
film.
going to be bored by it, but she was proper engaged by it. And if you can keep a child occupied with a film, it's a good film.
Yeah. And I'm just hoping that this opens the eyes to Hollywood as a whole, that they need to give these directors the opportunity to make the films they want to make, whether it's an upcoming director. Do you know the story, very quickly? I know we're running out of time here. The story about Neil Blomkamp, who did Chappie and District 9.
District 9, yeah.
Elysium and some of those films. He was developing a new Alien film, which was going to be a direct sequel to Aliens. And there was concept art that had been developed that he was posting online. And this was all before Alien, not
Covenant.
Covenant, that's the one. That was before Ridley Scott made that one. 20th Century Fox decided we're going to go with Ridley Scott's film, and yours is just not going to happen. And he felt really bad about this, the studio system, that to the point where he just doesn't want to be involved in the studio system. So he started his own studio, and he's doing smaller films, but he's doing the films that he wants to do under his own kind of, a bit like what George Lucas did with Star Wars, really, under his own kind of banner, if you will. And I think people like him, given the opportunity, are the people that we need to be making great films. Not just him, but there's loads of them. So that's what Dune does.
Yeah, and I think it also shows. I assume it's done well at the box office. It must have done, but I think it shows us an appetite out there for films. That who was it? A Warner Brothers? Who made it?
I think it was Warner Brothers. Yeah.
I mean, it's the first film they've not fumbled in bloody ages. Warner Brothers.
Because it's not a superhero film.
Well, have you heard about they're making whole films, right? And then they're canning them for tax relief or something.
Yeah, didn't that happen with Batgirl?
Yeah, and it's also happened recently with a live action. John Cena was going to be in a film with Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, and they made it all.
And they're just not going to release it. Oh, it's tax write-off or something. Yeah, I have heard about that. It's just bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Surely you can release those films and make money.
I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I can't. It's shocking that you can make a film and then that happened to you. But that seems to be the thing with Warner Brothers. It's like dud, and then massive film, and it probably keeps them going another couple of years.
I think they've had a couple of hits recently with two different directors who have made the films they wanted to make, and that was Todd Phillips with The Joker and Matt Reeves with The Batman. I know they're both comic book films in the same, obviously, the same cinematic kind of, not universe, but you know what I mean. It's umbrella. But they're two filmmakers that have made films that they wanted to make, and they've done it their own way. And Warner Brothers have backed them, and I've done it again now with Dune and Denis Villeneuve. And just carry on doing that. This is what we want to see. And
I think that's probably why. And it's one of the things that got me out to the cinema. Just something different. You know, it seems to me. There's another Godzilla film coming out next week.
Oh, I'm not bothered.
I mean, my dad wants to watch it, so I said I'd go. And if nothing else, it's a CGI fest that you can sit back and enjoy without any thought process going into it. But no, it's good. It gives me hope that there'll be more. I'm intrigued to see what else is gonna follow on from it now.
Do you think it would have won awards if it would have been released before the Oscars? Because I think it would have, and I think it will do next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's better when it's fresh in their mind, I guess. But, the Oscars, they do what they bloody want anyway, don't they? Don't bloody bother watching all that.
Well, yeah, it's just elitists patting each other on the back. Oh, well done for yeah.
Tell you what, though, get Will Smith back there, and I'm watching. That was the best thing that ever happened. Keep my wife's name out of your
mouth. Brilliant.
Everyone, this is awkward.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't think he's done much for Will Smith's career since, but I'd definitely watch it again if he was in it with back at the Oscars with Chris Rock.
I just want to know, did you think this when you was watching the film, right? So obviously Dune came out a long time before this other film I'm about to mention. But when I was watching it, and you've got Paul and his relationship with Stilgar, the guy who just believes in him no matter what, I
Yeah,
thought this is exactly the same. Well, not exactly the same, but it's very similar to Neo and Morpheus.
I
Their
thought that.
relationship.
Yes, yeah, I thought that because he kept calling him the one as well for a start.
Yeah, so this might have been talked to death by lots of people over the years. You and me are very new to Dune, so we're going to make the point as well if no one else, if the other people have made it. But I've got to believe that was an influence on the Matrix. That story.
Yeah, most probably. Yeah, I mean, I picked up on that myself as well, and I just thought that's very Matrix-esque. And then I thought, well, Dune was written late 70s,
60s, I think.
60s. Sorry, yeah,
60s,
60s.
I believe.
Frank Herbert. Yeah. So yeah, I think you could be right there, and you do an awful lot more investigation on these things than I do. But
I mean, it was just something. I haven't looked into it because I ought to have really, but it was just a thought I had as I was watching it, and I think it was cemented when people were outright saying he's not the one, and the guy was like willing to lay his life down to prove he was the one. I thought, yeah, he's like Morpheus of the desert. This guy, 100%.
Absolutely, but there is one quick scene. One scene I want to mention very quickly was when Austin Butler's character is introduced, and just the way that was all shot, kind of like monochromy, black and white almost, with the black sun and the very bright white light, and everything was just black or white. I thought that was incredibly well shot, and it looked amazing on the cinema screen.
Yeah, it was good, and I enjoyed how there wasn't like an explanation or a rundown of what it was. Just a weird planet that these people lived on. They got their weird fireworks, haven't they? And it was all like inverted colours, and I suppose they've never mentioned why, and I suppose, but now I think I get an idea as to why they're all bold and look weird because they all live on this planet, and that must have affected them somehow.
But those fireworks, they looked a lot like in Arrival. The shapes they make when they're communicating. The fireworks looked a little bit like that, with the black smoky shapes and stuff. My mind went straight to Arrival when I saw those fireworks. I just thought it was a really nice touch.
Oh,
really,
maybe
really
it's
clever.
all one big cinematic universe. Maybe
it could be. It could be. We didn't get the giant space whale things as that were in the David Lynch version. Which were from the book, so they weren't even. I think they help with space travel or something. A little bit like what's been done in Star Wars recently with those big space whale things. So I think that was a big influence from Dune as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dune was a big influence on George Lucas when he was writing Star Wars.
Yeah, because
Tatooine.
Tatooine, probably is. To be fair. So it's interesting. It's great to. You must be thinking that there's some really long time Dune fans who have seen this influence all through the years, and it must be great for them to see it coming back. And now people like you and me are recognizing what great influence it's had on a lot of these other films. So with that, I'm guessing without Dune, you don't get maybe Star Wars and a lot of these others. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe not in the way that they were intended as well. So. But I think if you were going to grade Dune Part 2 out of as you would do like A, B, C, blah, 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 what would you grade it? Because I'll let you go first.
A B out of 5.
A B out of 5. I grade it. I'd probably grade it a solid A, not an A+, but a solid A.
I would say A- or B+. I really enjoyed it. There's room for a little bit more epicness, which I think we'll get in the third one. It wasn't like what I'm trying to say, I guess, is there's room for another gear in that story, and I think we'll get that. And I think we'll look at the third one. If all goes well, I think we'll look at the third one as being the best one, all being well. And but I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, really recommend it to anyone who wants to go watch it.
I would as well. Highly recommend it. And if you have already seen it and you feel differently to us, then by all means let us know in the comments if anything you want to add to what we've mentioned. We haven't gone into the film in great detail because it's only a quick stream tonight.
Reactions, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's just a reaction. It's fair to say we both got the same reaction out of going to see that film, and like I said at the top of this discussion, it's just refreshing to see something in cinema that is just that good.
Yeah, loved it. I can't wait for part 3. When's that going to come out?
Who knows? This was supposed to come out last year, and I don't know why it was pushed back. It may have been marketing, or I don't know if there was much in terms of reshoots with this, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't any, because every film has reshoots.
Yeah. It's a shame we're like, do you remember Matrix 2 and 3 when they're 6 months apart?
Yeah, and that was a bad decision. It felt rushed.
Yeah. But then, didn't the Lord of the Rings films come out 1 year after the next?
Yeah, they were one year, but they were being filmed back to back purposely.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be 2 films, and then New Line Cinema executives, whoever it was, were saying that it needs to be 3 films. You can't do this in 2; you have to do it in 3.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's right. And I guess they didn't. I think I read somewhere they didn't actually greenlight Dune 2 until Dune 1 had already been made. So
yeah, even though it was called Dune Part 1.
Yeah, can you imagine?
I know. Where's Part 2?
That was like Into the Spider-Verse. Across the Spider-Verse. You know the latest one. Yeah, I know you haven't watched these films. It just ended, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I didn't realise the film was called Across the Spider-Verse Part 1.
Right. Okay.
So, was it? Or was that just my imagination? I don't know, but
I don't know.
It ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I need to watch
those. You should, mate. You should. Honestly, you're missing a treat.
I think I will give those a watch, but enjoying Game of Thrones at the moment. Enjoying it more than I thought I would, because I didn't enjoy it the first time around, but definitely we're halfway through season 4, so yeah, that's picking up.
Have you finished it before?
No, I only got as far as the middle of season 3, so I've got further than I did last time. And then you introduced me to Breaking Bad.
It's I'll be interested to talk to you once you finish the show. I feel like you've seen the Red Wedding, haven't you?
Yeah.
Episode.
Yeah.
My theory is George R.R. Martin, the author of the books, he had that in mind as his end goal. That was the whole story was building up. And I think he said so himself. And I think after that, I don't think he had a clue what he wanted to do with the story, and he just sort of rambles on. Weird stuff happens, and I've got to say, the ending is shocking. It's
Yeah, I do know that the last couple of seasons aren't based on the books in particular, because the narrative of the books kind of ended beforehand, and it'll be interesting because I've got past Joffrey's dead, and his younger brother's now taken the throne. So I've got past all that, Tommen, and I mean, I was gutted to see what happened at the Red Wedding, because I liked Robb Stark and I like Catelyn as well, and every time you get invested, this is why I didn't like it the first time. Every time you get invested in a character, they kill him off. But anyway, that's probably a discussion for another.
Quite possibly, but no. But I'd be interested too, because in the show, it will take a character a whole season to get from one side of the map to the other. If the map's probably thinking of it like a game, but
like Risk.
in the last couple of seasons, when they're just sort of, it's like the proper Russian. It's almost scene to scene. They've gone these same distances, and it's just like, and then some of the things that happen are just ridiculous. Have you seen Ed Sheeran in it yet?
No, I haven't. I didn't know he was going to be in it. I'm not going to watch it now.
Right. Sorry. Give me.
I hope he gets his head cut off in it.
It's not a spoiler, because it's just like, it's not really part of the story.
Just a cameo.
Sort of, yeah. But just, I would say that was the moment it started going downhill.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And I want you to watch that in real time and tell me if I'm right.
Okay, yeah, I will do.
When you see Ed Sheeran, you look at your wife and you say, "This is it. This is where Sean said it was going to start going bad." This is where it starts breaking bad.
Yeah, that's probably the point I should have started watching Breaking Bad. Yeah, this is the moment Vince bought WCW.
Yeah, this is when you see Ed Sheeran, that's when Vince comes out to help Stone Cold. That's where it all starts going wrong. It's the invasion.
Oh God, I hope people understand our references.
I hope so too. But I really enjoyed that. It was only a quick chat tonight, everyone, if that's all right. But I really enjoyed talking about it, and hopefully we'll get to it again soon if they knock out another good film from somewhere. Yeah,
you never know. We might have to do the same when we go see Deadpool 3.
Got to, mate. Book me in. That's got to happen.
Absolutely. So I think we'll probably just end this by saying keep your eye on the channel because there's a lot coming up very soon. We've got Batman reviews and we've got Star Trek original series movie reviews from Star Trek the Motion Picture to Star Trek 6 coming up very soon. We've got a couple of Star Wars chats. We've got a couple of video games to movie chats, and we've got some guilty pleasures as well on the horizon. So there's a lot coming up in the next few months if we get time for life to allow for editing.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll do our best.
We do. I would say we've been busy, but it's mostly you, to be fair.
Well, you've been busy with other things. My busyness is only starting to ramp up now. So
life busy, isn't it? But,
yeah.
But no, it's an exciting time for the channel. So yeah, thank you to everybody genuinely who takes an interest in listening to us two idiots rambling on. So on that note, thank you for listening in to us rambling on. This has been a chat about Dune. We've been the Critical Cinema Club. I've been Sean.
I've been Colm.
And good night. Thanks again. See you next time.
See ya.